Hello, welcome to the interview of Joana. Thank you, Joana, to be here with us today. So we're doing an interview about the SDGs goal 10, so reduce the inequalities for the campaign SDGs in action. So Joana, thank you to be here. Can you introduce yourself in 1 minute, please?
Yes, so Marie and Nikki, thank you so much for having me here. This invitation was, I was very happy to receive it. So my name is Joana, I'm 27 years old. I have a master's degree in development and cooperation, and I've been working in sustainable development. And also I'm working in the Portuguese Confederation of Volunteering, where I'm a programs manager. I'm a scout and I love to travel. I have been through more than 60 countries, 65 to be more precise actually. And I just love to meet people around the world from different cultures and learn with them.
Nice introduction. Thank you very much, Joana. So you're working for the SDGs 10, reduce the inequalities. You have some experience. Can you tell us your motivation to work for these SDGs and how you act for this?
Yes, sure. So as I told you before, I've been traveling around, and one thing that I really like to learn about other countries is really how do they manage the equality or inequality, let's say. And I assume that in our world we have a lot to do still, because there are many inequalities still, and we are progressing, of course, but not as quick as we should. And we see lots of differences in our developed and developing world, let's say. So here, what I try to do in Portugal, at least, is to campaign for equalities in Portugal, and I do it through scouting. So let's say training young people to be more aware of the inequalities, and not just the inequalities, but what the inequalities brings, because they bring more inequalities, right? And so this has been done since, well, actually since scouting started, but we have been put a lot of effort in managing the SDGs and promoting the SDGs since 2008. And so I suppose we have around 60,000 associates in our scouting association, and we really want to educate young people for a better world. And this has to do a lot about teaching them how inequalities are, I mean, are not always good to solve problems, and we must be aware of them around us, around the world. But we also should take action towards it. It's not just knowing that part helps a lot, because when we know that something is not doing well, we should try to do better, of course. And so it's what I have been doing.
Okay, thank you. Can you give a concrete example of an experience where you observed some inequalities? It could be gender equalities or other things, and some concrete example of training for young to them to be more aware of these inequalities.
Yes, we train them also through action. So, for example, we know that many people still struggle to get food in our country, and that's why we have food banks all around. And so we make sure that the young people are aware of this problem and that they do something. So it can be that we go to shops, shopping malls, or supermarkets, and give the people some bags for them to give food to other people in need. It can be also, for example, I remember we were cooking meals for the homeless. It's still a problem in Portugal. Some people, especially in big cities such as Lisbon or Porto, there are some people that still live in the streets, and this is a way of helping, let's say. Of course, we should be in contact with the organizations that do work with these people, and this is very helpful, because when we work in partnerships, it works better, of course, because the organizations that are working in the fields, they know exactly the necessities. So this is something we do as well. As for so for example, due to this pandemic, we know that many people cannot be at, like, going to the street or going to supermarkets, sometimes because they are vulnerable. And so there are scouts who go to the people's house and like buy the groceries, or just call to see if everything is okay. If you are very, very like kind of a child, I think, you can also make draws, and this happens when we were beginning the pandemic times, because the old people were suffering from isolation. They had to be inside all the time, and so we had some scouts who drew some paintings and who sent it to them. So yeah, I think, inequalities are everywhere, right? And we can always make something to make other people's lives better, but it has to do a lot with our motivation, of course. And the motivation, we can train it, but be aware of the problems. I think it's the main point. And after that, we can be useful.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you very much. A lot of actions to actually fight the inequalities. Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned how local initiatives can make a huge impact to people's life, but do you actually think that all these local initiatives make an actual impact to accomplishing the SDGs?
Yeah, of course. I truly believe that, because it's in our own communities that we make the change. No, it's not just being a politician and say what should be done and not. If you are not doing it in your own local community, then when are you going to do it, or where are you going to do it? I mean, of course, we can always do things in other communities, but it's always a local community for someone. So yeah, for sure. I think it's the way to do things, actually. I suppose it's very, very important to have the big picture, and to do national campaigns, but it has to do something. It has to deal with the people that live in the communities. Otherwise, who are you impacting?
Okay, and do you believe that the SDGs are actually a viable solution for the global issues that we're facing? Because a lot of people have called it like an abandoned solution, like to do the minimum and then put focus on the issues, but without actually solving them.
Yeah, this is a very interesting and good question. I see the SDGs as a tool for us to understand what is wrong in our world, and for us to have a guide to see how can we actually do things and solve things. So yes, I agree that sometimes it's not obvious that we will contribute to all SDGs. Sometimes there are some that it's difficult to do, to think about concrete actions. For example, SDG number 5, which has to do with inequalities, but gender equality, let's say. And sometimes it's something a bit philosophical now, but we can actually provide actions for that. I mean, if we see that someone is suffering some kind of inequality or discrimination, we can always tell these people, like, don't be like that. You see, so it's an action still. We don't need all to I don't know, to do things for the other people to see it, because sometimes it's easier. You take a picture of someone planting a tree. Oh my God, he's saving the planet. But there are things that we cannot take pictures of, like something like this, you know. So I agree that sometimes it's a bit difficult to think about concrete actions to do towards the SDGs. But I also believe that it shouldn't be a point of working all SDGs in the same way, in the same manner, but we should work the SDGs as the needs that we encounter. So if, for example, in my community, I see that the real needs is to give food to other people, and I have lots of green spaces, maybe I shouldn't be planting trees, but I should be taking care of these people, no? So I truly believe that we have been working for the SDGs even before they existed, but now we have the plan and we know what should we actually work for to make this world sustainable.
Okay, and is the deadline going to be achieved? Because it's in less than 10 years now, in 2030.
Yeah, I'm not so optimistic about that. We know there is a big run until 2030, but I still believe it's always better to do the best we can than to do nothing. So I think they won't be achieved, but at least we should work for it anyway, the best we can.
Yeah, that's actually very, very nice.
Yeah, thank you for your nice motivation and words. We hope the people that are going to watch this interview will have so much motivation in them too. Can you describe a bit the SDGs term, so reduce inequalities in Portugal? So in Portugal specifically, you said, like, for example, you saw that it was a lot of about food, like access to food and so on. But can you just talk a bit more about this precisely? Like, what do you think about this goal in Portugal? What are the main problems, let's say?
Wow, okay. So I suppose we have many different issues when it comes to inequality. So for example, housing, I think it's one of the biggest problems in Portugal. It's very costly, especially in cities such as Lisbon or Porto, and especially for young people. We all know that young people start to do a lot of training, a lot of, I mean, anything before they start work, actually. And so when I'm young as well, when we start to work, actually, it's very difficult for us to pay a rent, for example, if we don't live with friends or if we don't find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I mean, it's almost impossible, let's say. So, but even not just for young people, of course, but for people with fewer resources, it's difficult. And also when people, I mean, just imagine if someone wants to work needs to work in the center of Lisbon, because it's there that they found work. Sometimes it takes 1-2 hours to commute in the morning, plus 1 or 2 in the evening. And I mean, in the end of the day, maybe you cannot see your children. Maybe you need someone to be with them, of course. So it's difficult. I still think that the economic side of the Portuguese economy, it brings inequalities, okay? One of them is housing, for sure. The other part is finding a job. I think we are still very badly paid. I mean, of course, when you compare to other European countries, I'm not comparing with the rest of the world, because if it's for that, we are very, very privileged. But when it comes to like our neighboring countries such as Spain or France, I still think we are working much more to receive much less. Yeah, so I would say it has to do a lot with our economical problems, for sure. And then, of course, I mean, if you want to have savings and all of that, sometimes it's not very easy. On the other way, I still think we have a very good health system, and a very good school system, let's say. And I'm very happy to live in a country such as this, that if I have a disease, most cases, of course, I'm not talking about everything, but yeah, I can be treated in a public hospital. And I think, I mean, we are privileged because of that, for sure. So I would say we pay a lot of taxes as well, and we don't receive, I mean, the other part of the thing, because when we pay taxes, we suppose that we will have everything. But I think we still pay a lot of taxes. And I think it's an inequality if you compare to other countries, of course. About gender equality, for example, I still think we should be more equal towards genders. I mean, I still think we have homophobic people, for example, racist people as well in Portugal. We shouldn't be like this, but yeah, I still think it exists, and we can see it clearly. There are so many inequalities, I mean. So I would say these are the main ones when it comes to inequalities. Yes, for sure. And as I said before, we are privileged if we compare to the rest of the world. Please, like I'm not trying to say, oh, poor we, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just trying to say that there are still things to solve in this matter.
Yes, of course. Of course. Thank you, Joana.
Okay, do you think that the government or the civic society is doing more things to actually reduce inequalities in Portugal? Because for me, I think the civic society here is very strong in relevance to other European countries, maybe.
Wow, this is such a very nice view of the thing. Well, I mean, yeah, I agree with you completely. Also, I work for the third sector, so I should tell you this right now. But I truly believe that Portuguese people are very united when it comes to, for example, giving to others. It can be even a family that doesn't have so much resources or anything, but we are always willing to help. So, for example, when we had these deadly fires, like more than 100 of people died, and it was a massive wave of solidarity inside our country. Like everyone was giving food and giving clothes and giving everything to the other people. Yes, I think the state should play a bigger role in this, especially helping the civil society organizations to do more. Because, of course, the organizations, sometimes they have to deal with economic problems. Maybe they don't have all the resources to make sure that people can help each other and everything. But I do believe that we have many organizations, big associative life, let's say, and people work. I mean, people volunteer a lot, even if they are not like the volunteer in an organization, but they like to do good things to others. Yeah, and I believe, yeah, it happens.
Okay, and about the pandemic that you mentioned in the start of our interview, do you think that the pandemic had a positive or negative impact when it comes specifically to the SDG 10?
Very negative, for sure. Very, very negative. I mean, if you start thinking about how many industries had to stop, or it's a lot. I do believe that we need to do something. Of course, when this pandemic happens, the industries and the companies, of course, they should find a way, but it was too fast. I mean, it's too fast, and not all companies can resist. So, for example, my father has a restaurant, and for our family, it was quite difficult because we never knew the next day. I mean, it can be closed for 15 days, but my father still had to pay the employees, but maybe there wasn't money enough for his salary after paying the employees, because you never know like what's gonna happen next. And so I think there was a big negative impact, and especially in the health, mental health of people. I do believe that we are not the same anymore, and not seeing people for so long or having this distance. Of course, there's always Zoom, and this is a very good thing. I mean, we can be here together. We wouldn't find this idea maybe of doing the things the way we do right now. But at the same time, we are still humans, and I believe that humans need this touch. And also, people are less aware of the problems because they don't see it every day. Many of them are in their homes, working from home, caring about their families, and it's quite difficult and challenging also to manage kids, for example, or to manage sick people. If you have someone sick at home, maybe you cannot take the person to the hospital because there are many COVID cases, and you are a bit, afraid of, so truly bad impact for sure. And lots of people lost their jobs. And of course, this is not good for them. This is not good for the economy. And because it's not good for the economy, it's bad for the people. And it's a vicious cycle. So yeah, that's my answer. It was very bad for inequalities. I mean, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that very elaborate answer. It was very nice. But I think it's still bad now, because even though lockdown in Portugal is over, the issues that you describe are currently happening still.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Joana. You have a very, very interesting experience because you travel a lot, you observed a lot of inequalities in a lot of countries, and then you decided to come back in your local community and to act in your local community. So that's really, really interesting. So, Joana, by your experience, what advice could you give to someone who wants to act for this goal too?
Wow. I would say that we should feel motivated to act towards the SDGs or to act towards the challenges around us. And to be motivated, we should learn about the inequalities that we have around us. So read a lot, talk a lot with other people, because you cannot find the things in books that you will find around you when you talk to the people, when you get to know them, when you get to know the problems around. Also, I would say it's very important to do something that you truly like and that you are truly motivated to do. So, for example, if I truly believe that gender equality, for example, is the biggest issue, I should go forward and I should tackle this issue. Is if I think it's another issue, then just do it. We are different, and that's why I love people, because I love diversity. And I truly believe that everyone was born to do different things on this earth, right? We are not supposed to do the same everywhere, but we are supposed to do also something that truly means something for us, and we'll be much more motivated to do it, for sure, but also something that is a need in our local communities. So this would be my advice. And never stop dreaming. Nothing is impossible.
A nice sentence. Yeah, thank you very much. And especially for the young people, like, because when you're young, sometimes it's difficult to know how to act, because I don't know, you're young, people are just telling you, oh, you have to learn this, and not, oh, you know how to do this, you should do this. So yeah, what kind of advice could you give particularly for young people who would like to act? Yeah.
I have a particular answer for that, because I do believe in young people more than I believe in any other sector of the society. Okay, so I truly believe that young people are very inspiring, and young people really want to do the change, and they still have this power to change things, even though if sometimes they don't know it. As you were saying, sometimes we are capable of doing a lot of things, but because no one told us that we are, then we just think it's pointless to do it. It's not, okay? But young people, they have brilliant ideas, brilliant minds. Of course, a young person cannot have the experience of an old person, adults. Sometimes they can actually. And the experience, of course, tells you more things because you know how to do it or not. But I really believe that, I mean, young people are capable of doing many more things sometimes than adults, because young people still have the power. Young people still have their dreams, their minds very open. These open minds are very important, I think, too. And young people are capable of doing so many things, like really even to tell adults how to do the things. Even though they don't want to listen sometimes, it's normal, we all know that. But I mean, yeah, we are the best.
Okay, young people, listen to Joana and just go on then. Nothing is impossible. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Joana, for this interview. It was really interesting and very inspiring. We hope a lot of people are going to act for the SDGs, and particularly for this one in Portugal and in the international, in local or not. And thank you very much for your time and your very inspirational answers.
Oh, thank you, Marie and Nikki, so much for this interview, for this invitation, and congratulations for your project. It's amazing, and I'm very honored to be part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was very nice, and thank you also for your positivity. Like it was amazing.
Great.